Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our presentation today. My name is Adam Westcurtis, and I'll be walking us through the Sage Intacct demonstration. This is specifically for higher education organizations, so schools and colleges, and I want to point out some things that we work with other organizations that benefit those types of customers. Just a quick introduction here. Again, my name is Adam Westcurtis. I'm a CPA by background, but work in our technology division, helping organizations day in and day out with their financial and ERP accounting systems. There are two other contacts I'd like to introduce. Con Skimbos, he's an account manager. So if there are questions that you see throughout today's presentation, you're more than welcome to reach out to any three of us, but also him as well if there's questions on how the software is licensed or modules or those types of things. And also Sherry Zimmerman can also field those questions as well. All of our direct contact information is listed there. And since this is a brief conversation here this morning, want to not waste any time and dive right into our material. And a lot of the organizations we work with are looking to make a digital transformation to a cloud solution. And Sage Intacct fits that. And the beauty of it is it can integrate with hundreds of other third-party applications through the cloud. And there are different types of integrations, whether it's a bi-directional API integration, whether it's a middleware type solution, whether it's an export import solution, but some of the biggies that we see are specifically for the higher education space is integrating with the student information system. So think about the billings for those, the revenues coming into the general ledger application. Oftentimes we also see maybe a payroll solution and a advanced budgeting and planning solution as well to help forecast and plan things for the future. So with that, I want to dive straight into the software because that's what we're here to see. So let me pull that up and we'll start to proceed. So the first thing you'll notice right out of the gate is this runs in the web browser. So I literally go out to the web address, log in with my email credentials, and everything is there primed and ready to go. I'm always on the latest, greatest version of Sage Intacct. Updates are automatic. And all of the underlying infrastructure of the platform are baked into the software as well. So things like document management and attachments, storage space, security in terms of system hardening and how that can be protected in the protocols that Sage uses. Disaster recovery with multiple data centers and their failover redundancy is all built into the platform itself. And I'm going to kind of work from the top down here. One of the things that is unique to Sage Intacct is for some organizations out there, it's important to have what we call a multi-entity environment. And you can actually have up to 1,000 sets of books under one umbrella and consolidate those or have side-by-side financial statements on a balance sheet if I wanted to do that. The other beauty of this is if I have transactions where maybe some activity is occurring between two different entities, the system will automatically take care of what we call the do to do from activity or inter-entity transactions, and there's some setup behind the scenes that allows for that. So when I'm operating at the top level here, I'm just seeing the entire consolidated view of all the sets of books within this platform environment. And when I logged in, I'm logged in directly into the CFO dashboard. I can have an unlimited number of dashboards out here depending upon my role or what security permissions I have access to. I can call them whatever I want, but this is what we call the dashboard canvas. And the dashboards are highly configurable, meaning literally things are just drag and drop widgets on the screen. I can move things around. I can pin other items or components to the dashboard canvas and tailor these as well. And then if I'm in the back office and I want to share this with other department heads, I'm able to roll it out in that manner. They could even log in and see just their critical information. One of the things I love about Sage Intacct is the drill down capabilities. So everything is just right at your fingertips here. When I hover over numbers, I can drill down and see the underlying numbers, and that's whether that's a key performance indicator up here at the top, whether it's a financial report. So here I've got a revenue expense statement by different departments. I've got mathematics, nursing, computer science, physician assistants, and I've got an aggregate for all departments out here. This could be a real wide report. These are just some examples. But you'll notice every number in blue is drill down enabled. Any financial report can then be turned into a chart or a graph. So in this case, I've got budget versus actual by month. These are also drill down enabled. So let's say I need to look up, why I'm a little bit over budget for this particular month. I click directly on that bar chart, takes me to that month's financial statement that I drilled down on. You can see here I've got the expense side of the reporting financials, and all of these are also drill down enabled. I can expand and collapse sections on the fly. I can also relabel and rename or renumber any of the accounts that I see here as well. Let's say I have a question on the $66,000. I drill down on that transaction. It takes me to the underlying sources transactions, and in this case, I've got 4 journal entries and 1 accounts payable bill out here. I can see some high-level information in terms of maybe what department it was coded to, a project, or if it was restricted funds. I can see different dimensions within my chart of account structure, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. But again, I can drill down one step further, and now we're to what we call the source level activity. And now within 2 to 3 clicks, I'm directly as this transaction was entered. I could see the full audit trail. I could see any notes. I can see the attachment directly on the transaction. So there's electronic document storage built in, so I can review that. And then down below, I'd like to point out the transaction grid. This is what is unique to Sage Intacct and works very well for several different types of organizations. But for higher education, you might be tracking base accounts or natural trail accounts, we call them. You might have different departments. You might even have different locations or a satellite branch that would be able to be tracked, online programs. And then you can have other fields out here for kind of miscellaneous tracking, like maybe you want to track things related to a certain project area. Maybe you want to track unrestricted funds or the FASB 117 tracking. That would all be available. This grid is user defined. You can have more or less fields. That's something we work with you on to be able to get the type of reporting you're after in a new system. And these fields could also be mapped to different transaction types coming over from the student information system. So there's a lot of flexibility that could be coming in here. A couple of other highlights while we're on here is something that's unique to the Sage Intacct software is this Intacct Collaborate. I call it the instant messenger, but typically on screens, whether it's journal entries, accounts payable, cash receipts, setting up vendor records and other types of things, I can come out and add comments, and I can actually tag other users out here, put in comments, and when I share that, then that other individual in the accounting department or another manager receives an email alert with a hyperlink URL directly to the screen that I've commented on. So they can come in, take the necessary action or review without even having to navigate throughout the software into that specific transaction. Again, there's hyperlinks in this case to a payment number. There is a full audit trail capability in the system. And one of the other things I like to point out is it is easy, if this is something you're interested in, to reclassify transactions. So as long as the month hasn't been closed within Sage and you just need to change the internal account coding, you're able to do that without having to do a bunch of adjusting entries potentially as well. And then last but not least, specifically on accounts payable transactions, there's full workflow capability. So maybe I have things that are being routed like purchase orders throughout my organization, and those can all be electronically submitted and approved within the system as a part of the audit trail. So those are some examples. There are tons of different types of charts and graphs I can have out here. So what's my cash balance over time? And I can drill down and see more information. What are my expenses? And I can have indicators out here for different department heads, so on and so forth. A couple of things I would like to point out is you are able to see what we call statistical information or non-financial metrics. So maybe this comes in from another system or you enter it periodically. You can come in and enter that and then use that in terms of calculations and computations in financial reports. And then lastly, I can have, again, I mentioned different workflow capabilities. So maybe I have purchasing transactions where in this case, I've got 3 requisition purchase orders outstanding for my approval. There are email alerts built into the system. And again, users can use the email to log in and see their request, or they can come in and click that little magnifying glass and see what's outstanding here. And they have the ability to view those transactions. They can decline them and add in comments that go back to the uh, originator of the transaction and so forth, so they can take appropriate action. You might also be a little bit larger in size, and maybe you want someone to review journal entries before they're posted. You can set up a workflow for that. You can also set up workflows for AP bills or electronic check signers. So if you need to have dollar thresholds in terms of who can approve certain amounts, you're able to incorporate that into this software. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the dashboard capability. There's another one I would like to point out here. If you do, month close process, we like to try to keep that standardized. You can build reminders out here, but I'd like to point out you have the ability to use checklists. And this is, again, trying to get everything documented in one place in the system rather than, keeping track of things in a PDF or Word or Excel. And I've got different months out here. April is the month that I'm still looking to close, but I can come out and I can define the different aspects to complete the month close process. I need to do reconciliations, I need to bring in the payroll entries, I need to run the allocations, I need to email certain reports. I can assign different users. They can come in and mark when things are complete. They can add comments, any attachments, and so it really streamlines and gets everything documented. You can see better visibility in real time how the month close is taking place. So that's all built into the application. Kind of bringing it full circle, Sage Intacct is highly customizable. So you'll notice in the gray application bar out here, these are the different modules that you have access to. Literally, things are just drag and drop on the various screens. So I can rearrange the modules. I can rearrange different favorites out here. I can add bookmarks that I can rearrange and relabel for ease of use. Maybe there's a long transaction I'm working on. I'm waiting for some additional information. I can bookmark that as well. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is there is a universal search in the system. So maybe I need to look up all invoices for an insurance company, or maybe I remember a certain dollar amount, but I don't remember what it was for. I could do a universal search of the entire database and find that information. So let's talk about kind of the guts and the heart of the application. I mentioned initially the ability to use dimension-based reporting and slicing and dicing capabilities makes reporting very granular and extremely powerful. And if anybody is familiar with Excel pivot tables, the database is kind of set up in that manner, but it utilizes what are called dimensions. And so these are tags or reporting aspects that I can use to slice and dice the data. So in this case here, I've got some restrictions, I've got different departments, I've got some locations. It's up to your discretion as to which things you'd want to track. And you can relabel these if you want to use a different naming convention, that's fine as well. But let's look at departments. These can drive the financial reports. So in this case, maybe I've got a School of Science, Technology, and Health, and under that I've got sub-departments. I can have multiple layers deep here. And when I run reports, I could say I want to run things at the orange dot level, more aggregate, or I could run things at the green dot level and have more detail. The beauty of the report writer is that I don't have to run things in a sequential order. If I have an ad hoc report that I want to grab code 110, 130, and 220, that's fine. I can run reports in that manner. But this is the type of structure and scheme that you could come to expect in this type of environment here. I might do different restriction tracking if I've got unrestricted or permanently restricted funds or board designated funds. I might even track different locations or buildings, and that's all okay in the system as well. So let's take a look at the reports. The report center comes with over 160 reports out of the box. The ones that I have little star here are my favorites, and so those are the ones that I'm accessing most commonly, but you can kind of see by the scroll bar here, it just goes on and on and on in terms of the different areas of the reports. Okay, typically it's split out by the module area. Okay, but let's look at a few of the favorite reports that I have out here. I'll come into the report designer. The system Again, with it being cloud-based, all reports will render in the browser, so you don't need any special software to run reports, so not an Excel connector or anything like that. Runs in real time. As long as it's a posted transaction, it's going to pull through into the report. And you'll notice here, every report number is drillable with detail. Okay, so here I'm looking at actuals, budget, and a variance. I might have more summarized sections on the report, and the thing I like is you can expand and collapse sections on the fly to see more or less detail. Those are also drillable. And then, importantly, you can print off reports to PDF, export to Excel, or email this report directly out of the system. If you want reports to be set up on a schedule, meaning every, the third week of the month, you want a certain set of reports to go out to individuals in the organization, you can set up an email schedule as well. The report designer, again, is all in the browser, so I can control the rows and I can drag and drop the orders of accounts that I want different things. Okay. There are different columns out here to control a lot of different aspects, and this is what I'm going to focus on. That was a pretty basic report, but just with a couple of clicks, I can do a lot of different things here. I can expand by any of those dimensions that I have enabled. So if I want to see a department level report for maybe all departments, I just make that one change, refresh the report, and now it took that actual column and split it out by the different department areas. Okay, automatically input a total column there for me, and then still retain the other columns that I had, like the overall budget and variance. Every single number again here is drillable. I could slice and dice things by maybe the location level. I could slice and dice things by my restricted funds. And then Sage also has incorporated time periods to be able to slice and dice. So maybe you want a financial report that's split out by months. I could see that and see the year-to-date reporting periods. I certainly have full flexibility in terms of when my fiscal year begins, but this is a 12-month report, kind of side by side. If it's a wide report, I can say freeze the first column. This kind of works like Excel. And then I've got the infinite scroll right and left, up and down. Okay. So the report writer is quite powerful. I can do more advanced things like computations, filters. I can have multiple columns out here for different types of reporting things. I can add in notes to the report. You can restrict who can have access to reports. And then lastly, I wanted to point out you can pin reports to dashboards, or you can set them up on a schedule or a report packet. And that makes it extremely easy then. I don't have to call up each report and run them each month. I could just update the date one place, and all those reports then fire off in the background. So that's kind of a taste of a simple report here. Let me give a few other examples and then we'll continue on. I can do budgeting and forecasting in this system. So if I have the budget in the system, whether I've prepared directly in the software, or whether I've got a third-party tool, or maybe I'm budgeting in Excel, I can bring that information in. So here I've got 5 months of actual. I've got 7 months of the year remaining. I can do a 5 plus 7 forecast then to see what my ending year might look like. I can compare that to the prior year, and I can see, how does my forecast compare to last year's actual. You'll notice here again, actual and budget activity is drillable. Same type of reporting that we saw before. If I've got the requisition purchase module turned on, which is included as a part of the core accounting, so this is where people can submit and approve transactions, I can come out and I can actually see what my committed costs are. So maybe this gives me a better view of my overall budget. So things that are in process that we've submitted but haven't been expensed yet, I can see what those committed costs are and then see a better reflection of my overall budget. And then a unique report, kind of two last things here, is I mentioned early on, you can view or store statistical account information. So this report is a little bit different here. I can see, at a department level, different departments kind of just go down the line, what their revenues are, tuitions, what their expenses are. I could put in a bottom line. But here I've got non-financial numbers. So in this case, the number of enrollments. So how many students are in mathematics? How many did we plan for? What's the variance? And then this just gives an example of the depth of the report writer. I can do calculations like I do in Excel. So I could say, what's the average expense per student by department? And I could just kind of do those calculations. And I could do that at the column level. I could do that at the row level. But really, a lot of information can be used directly in the system. Then lastly, if you receive grants, you can also store grants or projects in the system. And this allows you to have those also at the row level if I want to kind of just see how things are going overall. And this report is very difficult to get in other systems in my experience because at the row level, I can have different date ranges that might not coincide with my fiscal year. So in this case, I've got a 2-year grant, and I can see what the overall grant budget is and see the actuals. And it's very easy to review those and make sure things are in compliance as I'm reviewing that information. So a lot of different examples there. Let me close out some of these tabs. So that's the report writing, again, built directly into the system. I've touched on purchasing and accounts payable, but let me just kind of give a visual here. You can set up different types of workflows. So maybe you have things that are standard purchase orders. Maybe you've got blanket purchase orders. You can control whether it's an IT department, whether it's a maintenance department, those types of things you can build in. But for new users, I like to point out this overview screen. This kind of walks you through an example of how things can be processed and routed and approved through the organization. And again, email alert capabilities are kind of baked in. So this is an area that we see used quite frequently. People are submitting, maybe there's a purchasing agent, they do the purchasing, they check the pricing, they add any shipping costs, those types of things. If there are price adjustments, they match it up with an invoice once those goods and services are fulfilled, and then it pushes over into the accounts payable module. All of that is then seamlessly tied together and a part of the audit trail. And I can see who approved what and when. A couple of other things I'd like to point out. Certainly you can do miscellaneous billings out of the system. So maybe you're renting a space to a certain group or something like that. You can do that. But 2 areas I'd also show is that you can track projects. So maybe there are certain initiatives in the organization that you want to be able to keep track of. Maybe you have certain events or unique things, you're able to do that. And then I'd also like to see with the organizations that I've worked with in higher education, it's not uncommon that they use the fixed asset module. This is an optional aspect, but you can store all of your fixed assets in the system. You can keep track of what room or building they're assigned to, depreciation schedules, who's responsible for it, are there any maintenance or warranty, serial numbers, that's all available. And it will keep hyperlinks to the AP bills that were used to pay those off. You can control how they were depreciated. So all of that is then built into the system. And the last piece that I want to point out in terms of fixed assets that's pretty strong, and unlike other systems, is you can do construction in progress projects and tracking as well. So maybe you're building a new building on campus, or maybe you're renovating something. You can put that into construction in progress. You can see all the components and costs, and then place various aspects into service and run the depreciation. So again, all powerful in the sense that all the modules all work together. Another one that we see used is allocation management. So maybe you have overhead costs, that administrative costs that you want to spread to various departments. You're able to do that. And then kind of for month close aspects, certainly you can do full reconciliations in the system. So you can reconcile checking and savings accounts. You can also record credit card transactions. It does have bank feed capability, so you can have things that automatically pull in as long as your bank syncs with Sage Intacct. And you can also pay vendors electronically as well through ACH or other payment methods. So again, a very slick, encompassing system in that manner. One last thing I would like to point out is I've mentioned integration capabilities. One of the things I like is you can import all different types of data. So in this case, this is kind of level 1 information, but I can import from Excel different types of journal entries. So it's just a matter of coming out to import journal entries here, and I can point to the specific file that I want to import. It'll tell me if there were any errors that didn't come over quite seamlessly. So that's, maybe not as commonly done, but it'll tell me if anything didn't flow through there. The other thing I like to point out is it has full integration capability. So the platform itself has an open API infrastructure, and that allows other softwares to feed information in and out of Sage Intacct. So I just would like to give an introduction. This is what's called the Sage Intacct Marketplace, but think of this as the app store for Sage. Anything listed out here is plug and play ready, embedded by Sage to integrate and work with the Sage Intacct General Ledger system. And so it's not uncommon, maybe you have a payroll platform that you're using. You want to feed in the biweekly payroll journal entry. You can do that. It's not uncommon that maybe there's some advanced planning and forecasting if you're large enough to have those users and analysts to be able to do some of that information, or maybe you want department heads to go in and fill in their budget periodically. You can do those types of tools directly in the software with these integrations. So just want to point out that there's a lot of different things that can do with Sage Intacct. It's a very robust system, and wanted to introduce the Sage Intacct Marketplace. So that's kind of a visual tour of the Sage Intacct Marketplace, or sorry, the Sage Intacct solution. The system does have the ability to have full, support. So if you have a question on a particular area of the software, you want to look what other users are responding to. There are classes that you can take if you're looking for education needs on the product itself. So just a very all-inclusive and mature product for Sage Intacct. So with that, I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint presentation here. Again, this is just kind of a high-level flyover of the Sage Intacct software for higher education organizations. And certainly there are a lot of other things that we could go into a deeper dive on, but if you have any questions or interest in what you've seen today, you're always more than welcome to reach out to myself. I'm there in the middle, Adam, and you can contact me directly. You're also more than welcome to contact Cons and Sherry Simmerman, and we'd love to have a conversation about how we might be able to go through that digital transformation process and improve your current accounting system needs. So with that, we'll conclude, and thank you very much for everybody's time today. Take care.